Okay. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I guess I can now skip a few slides. Um, in very general terms, what Galaxy is kind of, or this is how at least I perceive data analysis. You have tools, you have data, and you have infrastructure. And those three components you need somehow. And if we talk about workflows, you have a bunch of different tools that you want to put together. You have probably a bunch of different data sets, not only your data that you want to analyze, but you probably need reference data. You probably need some models, depending on the tools that you're using. And you use a lot of infrastructure, or you need a lot of infrastructure, depending, again, on how much data and what kind of data you want to analyze. And Galaxy is kind of the thing in the middle, which tries to offer you access to data, integrate tools, but also manage the infrastructure below. So you as a user ideally don't need to care about infrastructure at all, right? You don't know how much cores, how much memory we have. You don't care much about storage in that sense. And you can analyze your data because we provide you a bunch of tools. We provide you a bunch of reference data, models, and so on. And as Christian said, you just log in, and then you can start working. And this is what I would like to explain you now, a little bit with slides and what is actually there, what is possible, and maybe with a small demo if you're interested. But please feel free really to ask questions also right in the middle. If I should go in more detail to some aspects, so we can really keep that interactive if you like. So Galaxy on its own, maybe just a small recap, is an open source project, so completely open source. You can deploy it locally. There are many universities and institutes that have local Galaxy instances. So if we talk about Galaxy, we talk about a framework, right? Which can be deployed and configured completely differently. So that's maybe one of the weaknesses. If you choose a Galaxy server, that's the first thing that you need to do, right? And I'm now talking about the European Galaxy server, but there are, for example, there is the Australian, or let's say Asian Galaxy server for the Asian, Australian continent. Then there is the North American Galaxy server. So these are the three big ones. But there's a French one, there's a Belgian one, there's an Italian one. As far as I know, rumors are that there will be a Swiss one. There's a Czech Galaxy server and so on. So you can choose. The tools might be different that are offered, but largely it's the same framework, and you can move workflows between those instances.
Björn, can I ask a question, since you said we can ask questions in the way? Out of curiosity, what's the difference then between like within the EU? You said that there's of course the EU Galaxy server. So then what's the difference with the Italian, the Belgian? So it's just the same kind of platform, or?
It's the same platform, definitely. The differences might be in the resources that they offer, right? So the French Galaxy server offers French resources, Italian. You have then access to Italian resources. So you might have more storage or less storage than on the European Galaxy server. You might get French support in the French language. That is very important for them.
Yeah.
We try to harmonize those servers so that at least the core set of tools is always the same. And we also try to sync the most important workflows that they are already there, that you don't need to import them. So these are the big differences, I would say.
Yeah, but then does that mean that if you develop a pipeline, let's say a workflow on the European Galaxy server, does that mean that you can kind of share that workflow with, I don't know, the Italian Galaxy server, and then they can just talk to each other, or?
Kind of, yes. I will come to that, but essentially, you can share workflows with everyone on this planet, and then it's kind of easy to get this workflow into another Galaxy instance. The only requirement is that the tools that this workflow needs to be installed in the server. I will come to that later, but at least in Europe, we really try to ensure that the tools are always there. And if the tools are in all these Galaxy instances, the workflows can be easily transferred and you can run them wherever you want.
Okay, cool. And then one last question from the participants. Someone is asking if the European servers are indeed located in Europe.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool.
So,
thanks.
I mean, the European Galaxy server, Use Galaxy U, is largely located in Germany, but we can also submit jobs to other things. I mean, this is now getting technical, but let's say 95% of the hardware from the European Galaxy servers in Germany. And the same is true for the French, for the Belgian one, and so on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just a slide of the European Galaxy server. I mean, we have passed now 100,000 users and registered users. And there's a large set of tools and also training material. If you want to know more about that, please let me know. But yeah, we have only so much time, I guess. European Galaxy server, free registration. You get 250 gigabytes per storage, just if you create an account. If you want more storage, there is a form that you need to fill out where you need to describe your project. And then usually in a few working days, we processing that, and then you have more quota. So if you are in the need of more than 250 gigabytes, yeah, let us know, and we can provide you that. We provide also a bunch of reference genomes by default and a bunch of standard machine learning tools with models. So this is the stuff that I told you with getting also reference data in. So essentially, if you want to map your genome against, I don't know, if you want to map your data against the human genome is already part of Galaxy and all other model organisms as well. We also provide your Kraken indices and so on. So kind of 10 terabyte of reference data is already provided and you don't need to care about that. There is a huge set of tools integrated in Galaxy already. And this goes from the more bio domains, so you can do your genome annotation, your genome assembly, but it also goes into protein structure prediction, for example, AlphaFold, OpenMS is then proteomics, metabolomics is there. And if we leave the bio domain, there are people using it for astrophysics, for climate science. We have large parts of ecology, or we have now tools in ecology, in earth science. So it's really now getting bigger than just the classical life science domains. And in total, I think we have now more than 3,500 tools. And this is important because these tools are kind of the building blocks that you need to then assemble your workflows. So we need to have these tools in Galaxy so that you can create workflows. But I will talk later about that a bit more. If you're interested in that, there's an exhaustive list of tools that we offer. You can check that out. Yeah, but as I said, it's even beyond bio, but I guess we are still primarily bio domain specific, and this goes from all different kinds of, from sequencing to mass spec. There's also an entire subset in Galaxy, or we call it a subsystem in Galaxy, where you can plug in visualizations. Yeah, and this works very similar to tools. So you can plug in tools in Galaxy and visualizations. So if you are missing a visualization, the same goes actually also for tools. Please ping us, or please ping your Galaxy admin, right? And then we can see how we can integrate those tools, or if it's just an easy installation. But keep in mind, if you are missing a visualization, if you're missing a tool, that you just contact us, and then we can integrate them for you. Visualizations can be very specific, I mean, can be very generic to, for example, a data table. So the classic visualization, bar chart, and so on. But they can be also very specific, that you have a genome viewer or that you actually try to create such a circus plot. And those circus plot, I don't know if you have done that already. It's very cumbersome to do that actually on a command line. And here you get also a graphical interface where you can then assemble together such a very complex circular genome plot, for example. As I already mentioned, or as you probably know, Galaxy's primary interface still today is probably this web interface that you know. And we try to, I mean, we are constantly developing this. But maybe for you to know, there are already other interfaces where you can interact with Galaxy, right? So during COVID, for example, we assembled, also assembled, but we analyzed more or less 500,000 of COVID samples. And we didn't do that via the graphical user interface. So we actually did that all via an API in an automatic way. So whenever a new COVID sample was sequenced, we actually took this data, automatically uploaded it to a Galaxy, processed it, and the results we pushed actually to a public archive so that people in a very timely manner could see the variants popping up and so on. So I'm just saying that if you have, or your lab has, a very standardized pipeline in the end, where you want to go into the habit of data is processed from a machine, you just want to automatically analyze it and then publish the results somewhere, this can also be completely automatized without you using a web interface. Yeah, but of course the web interface is still where most of our users interact with, I would say. And in the end, on the left side, for example, you see here a tool form. So all these 3,500 tools that I showed you will have a tool form that is similar to that what you see on the left-hand side, right? So Galaxy will generate you a standardized tool form for all your tools. You can drag and drop then data in, you can change parameters, and in the end, you click execute and it will run on some cluster. Yeah. And this is the stuff that is then on top of the API, for example. This is another thing how Galaxy can look like. So you see your data in the middle, you have a toolbox on your left, and what we call a history on the right. And in the history, the entire provenance of your analysis is tracked. And with provenance, I mean the tool version, the inputs that you put in, the parameters that you have put in. So essentially, it's completely reproducible because we capture all your data analysis. This has one big advantage. So if you're getting old like me and you don't remember what you have actually done 2 months ago, you can now go back here, look at your history from 2 months ago, and really see which tools you have used, with which parameter set, and so on. Redo it if you like, change a few parameters, but all of that is actually captured and is accessible via a graphical user interface. This is what you see. I mean, on the right top side, you see here the different versions of a tool. Yeah, so you can even go back now and say, whatever, the latest tool version doesn't work for me for whatever reason, right? Can be our fault in Galaxy, can be that the tool really changed underneath. But you can always go back and say, I want to use version 1.3.0. And this is very important for reproducibility, but also if you run a training, right, you don't want, maybe you want to have a pinned version where you can show your users specific aspects of this tool. I already told you that I would like to compare Galaxy tools like Lego bricks. So all of these tools they look a little bit different, and they do, I mean, at least that's our philosophy. They do one thing at a time, and this thing they do very good. The complicated aspect for our users is you need to know these tools in your toolbox, right? You need to understand how these tools working, which tools are actually there. But once you understand that, you can actually put these building blocks together and build stuff with it, right? And on the right side, I would say this is what you call a workflow. This is what you build. This is a complex thing that you try to achieve and that you maybe want to share then with users. But to do that, you still need to know which tools are in your toolbox. And with 3,500 tools, I mean, it gets complicated. Yeah, I don't want to. I want to be honest here. The more tools we add, the more complicated it probably gets to you to actually find the tools that you want. We try to help you with that. We have something like a tool recommendation system, right? So we have some machine learning techniques that guide you through the tools. We have very good training material, in my opinion, that already shows you how to do particular analysis. But in the end, if you want to build a workflow, you need to know the tool set that you have available to build your workflow. And this is how a workflow can look like in the end. So all of these boxes here, what you see is actually a tool. And you can use these tools and just drag and drop them together. Right? These noodles, you can drag and drop. Maybe I can show you that in the live demo later. But this is how you combine these tools together. Yeah, and in that sense, it's as easy as it can get, I think. But again, you still need to know which tools you want to combine. We do have a wizard integrated in our a workflow editor. So this wizard gives you a few recommendations of how to create good workflows. For example, please add a license to your workflow, or please add yourself as a creator to this workflow. So we try to attach a lot of metadata to those workflows so that in the end, if you share it, you get an acknowledgement, you get citations, but others actually also know that they can use it with a proper license and so on. But we also try to guide you through annotating your parameters in a meaningful way. So you can add a lot of text actually that explains a potential user of your workflow, what this tool is doing what the step this tool is doing in your workflow, why you have chosen this tool, not another tool, what are the expected inputs, and so on. You can do that even more in a more annotated way. So what you see here is not a manipulated figure, right? This is a real screenshot from Galaxy. So you can annotate certain steps in boxes, and you can say, this is a pre-processing step, this is a post-processing step, and so on. You can paint stuff, so free text form painting for whatever reason. But you can also add Markdown and Markdown icons in your workflow to explain certain aspects of your workflow. Yeah, and especially if your workflow gets complex, and we have workflows with hundreds of steps, I think a bit of annotation, a bit of aggregating steps into pre-processing, post-processing, and so on, might be useful to understand the workflow in the long run. If you're really into workflows at some point, you also can have sub-workflows. So you can embed workflows in workflows, and workflows and workflows and workflows, and so on. So this is possible, and this is also recommended at a certain step if you really have, for example, or if you have 5 pre-processing steps or quality control steps that you always want to run in all your different workflows, it kind of makes sense to have that as a separate workflow and just include this workflow in all your other workflows. Yeah, and those sub-workflows is also possible. But as I said, I mean, the more of those advanced features you want to know, the more complex it gets over time. But you can start with the figure that you see here, right? So every step a single tool, annotated well, add a lot of text. And I think then the chances are very high that your workflow are actually then reused and that people understand how to use this workflow yeah, in the long run. You want to see a small demo? Do you still see my browser?
Yeah, we do. Björn, can I ask you
Sure.
one last question before getting into the demo?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you mentioned this, but is there a feature in Galaxy? So once you build a workflow, I'm thinking more about this question from, let's say, the bash scripting of creating, let's say, bash scripts to run pipelines. That's pretty much how I started with programming. So is there actually a feature in Galaxy that allows you to explain why you choose specific parameters for a certain kind of program and so on, so that you kind of like guide the user if you want to share the workflow so that the user understands why you choose specific parameters? Let's say the comment way of, coding in Bash, so something like that. I don't know if you
Yes,
understand what I mean.
I hope so. So for every of those boxes, and maybe I show that during the demo. Let's see.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm now in my Galaxy instance. I'm now in my account, and I can now go here and see workflows. And I mean, excuse me, but my workflow list is always a little bit like imported and so on because I try to guide. I mean, I offer a lot of support, so it's a little bit messy here. But essentially, you see here a list of workflows in my account. You can also see workflows that are shared with me. So people that particularly shared a workflow just with me, or you can actually have access to public workflows. So you can make a workflow completely public, and then everyone in this instance and everyone also from outside can actually see these workflows, browse them, search them, however you want to access them. So let's say I want to create actually a new workflow from scratch. I can go on create, and you see that this is an empty page now. So what I can now do is I can add an input. This is just a box. But I can say in this box already, I don't know, I know that I want to have a FASTA file as an input. This is, and you choose here from a list of formats that Galaxy knows. This is important because the next step, so let's say I want now to add a tool. So you go to your toolbox and you search for maybe SAM tools, SAM tools coverage. I don't know. I mean, this is now a nonsense workflow. But you choose now a tool from your toolbox. You click on it. I can also click on this. And you have now these tools in your workspace. So what you now can do, you can now click on this here, and you can try to connect this. Do you know why I cannot connect them? Because I choose that this is a FASTA file, and here SAM Tools wants a BAM file. So Galaxy understands already that you cannot connect those elements. Yeah, and this is important because we want to avoid that you do errors, right? That you do mistakes. So Galaxy understands a lot of these metadata behind the scenes to prevent you from doing errors. So if I change this here to a BAM file, for example, yeah, and this is updated, I can now drag and drop and combine this to my SAM tools and also to this one, right? And now they are connected, and this is my first workflow. And to your question, I can now take this step, add here a label, my fancy input, and I can also give it a proper annotation. So I can here write, I don't know, this file needs to be a BAM file because of blah, blah, blah. And this is what you probably meant with your
Exactly.
comment.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. That's it. Yeah, cool. Perfect.
And you can do that on every single step. So for example, here you choose SAM-tools coverage. So you can now go here and say, SAM-tools coverage was used because of blah, blah, blah is not working or whatever, right? And I really recommend you to do this actually, because this really helps other people that are reusing your workflow or whatever to get an understanding of that.
Yeah, that
You
was
can-
indeed my question, because indeed, like when you look at the bash script, there's always like those comment lines
Yes.
where, you know, people try to explain why you choose certain parameters and why that specific tool. So I was wondering if indeed you could do the same, but that's, yeah, that's what you show. Perfect. Thanks a lot.
So you can do that on a step. Later, I guess, you can also do like, you can add now an input that is not a file. So this input is now an integer. And let's see if I find here maybe. So this is your SAM-tools coverage tool. And SAM-tools coverage can have here a parameter. You can set this parameter here to 4, yeah, or to any other value. But you can also say, I want to set this during runtime. And then you see that the box has changed and that you can now provide here a second input. So I can now combine, and you see already I cannot combine it with the BEM file, right? Because it's an integer. But I can include it here. And now I have an input in my workflow that is a number. I can again go here, add a nice text, right? A nice label. Please provide me here I don't know what I choose, to be honest, the maximum coverage of the BEM file or something like that. And now this is even more explicit. Yeah? So if I save this and if I want to run now my workflow, and I can simply click here on run, I will see, okay, this is, but you got the idea, right? You get now here the description. I can add here a 4. Yeah, if I need an A, I get this message that it's not valid and so on. But essentially, I can now drag and drop here a data set. It needs to be a BEM file, and then I can run my workflow. Unfortunately, I don't have a BEM file here in my history, because otherwise it would show it already. Yeah, this is this is one way how you can create workflows. Honestly, how people create workflows most of the time, I would say, is that you actually analyze a data set. So you start with uploading your FASTA file. You then go probably here and say, I want to use Diamond to find similar sequences for my FASTA file to a reference genome. Then you run Diamond like here. So you can see here, if I click on reload, you can actually see that I run this tool with those parameters, with this input. I used this reference database and so on. And you can see the result already. So this is now a 2 or 3 step data analysis. There is no workflow behind it because I did it now interactively. But what you can do is you can now go here and say, extract a workflow from my data analysis, right? And this now tries to go through your entire history. You can now create a workflow out of this. This is now done. You can now go to edit. And you will be redirected to this workflow editor where you can now see this is my data input. This is my NCBI job that I run and my Diamond job. And if you click here, you actually now see here that this reference database is already pre-selected. So it's actually the exact same things that I did interactively is now already in my workflow. And it's a proper workflow. So you have these two ways. You can either create a workflow from scratch. This is very easy, but you need to have a deep knowledge of the tools that you want to connect, right? Or you do it interactively. You do it step by step. You try different tools. Maybe if this tool doesn't work, then you use a different tool. But once you are finished with your data analysis, maybe on a toy example, you extract it as a workflow. You have it as a proper workflow now, and now you run it in production on your very big data sets. Yeah, so this is the second way how you can run workflows. Yeah, if you are interested, there is also this blog post that explains a little bit a few new features about workflows. So you can add colors, you can have snippings. There's a YouTube video. You can add these boxes that they are all in Markdown and make it a little bit more fancier. You have freehand comment section. So if you actually want to explain your workflow, for example, in a training and so on, right? You can actually, yeah, paint in it if you like. So there are a lot of these stuff. So please check that out. These are here. So this is a blog post, but you can embed workflows in real in your website. So you can zoom in, zoom out. You can really see what this workflow is doing. And in the end, you go to view in Galaxy. You get redirected to a Galaxy instance, and you see this workflow here. You can now import it. You can run this workflow, and yeah, just reuse it. Yeah. So essentially, you can embed once you have a workflow in the ERGA website in an interactive way. You click on view, or you can also download it. You are redirected, and then you can just run it. You upload now your data, and you run this workflow that you have just seen in the blog post. Yeah, this is how you also can share your workflows. Another thing is you can share workflows on Workflow Hub. That's a registry for workflows. And you can search for Galaxy workflows. You can search for ERGA. And then you will find, for example, this workflow from Diego. That also describes a little bit what it is doing. It has nice text. It has a list of tools. But most importantly, you have a Run in Galaxy button on top. So you click on this. You get, again, redirected to Galaxy. You have this workflow now. You can put in now your data and just run it. Yeah? And this is also how we can then distribute a little bit the work, right? So we can have workflow developers that doesn't need to be cluster experts or bioinformaticians. They just need to know tools. Yeah? But those workflow developers create workflows, and then other people can just reuse them. Or maybe change small things, replace a tool, add a new tool. This is all what you can do. Okay, that's, I guess, my live demo. I hope it's easy enough, or you get at least the idea of how this is working. If I go back to my slides, and please stop me if I'm over time and whatever. I just
well,
want...
maybe
Yeah.
you can answer maybe this question that is coming from the participant. So someone is asking if you can comment on how the pipelines handle memory requirements from different steps in different workflows. So are resources allocated according to the step needed, and is there a way to know in advance or trial and error?
Good question. Yes, every step in this workflow has its own resources, but you as a user don't care. Yeah, so the philosophy in Galaxy is that a user don't need to deal with those technical aspects. So first, you don't know what we have available, right? You don't know how large, how many CPUs, how many memory, if we have big memory nodes or not. You don't know. And most of the times, you also don't know how much memory your tool consumes, right? So this entire complexity is shifted to the Galaxy administrator, or let's say the Galaxy people that develop Galaxy tools and so on. So so I call it separation of concerns, and the user should not concerned with that. But the Galaxy administrator is. So if this is interesting for you, we do have in Galaxy something that we call total perspective vortex, hitchhikers through the Galaxy. Fans should know this. But essentially, it's a database where we collect all our tools and we say this particular tool, or let's see if we have, so spades. Yeah, it's an assembly tool, will have 10 cores and this amount of memory. Yeah, or hi-fi YASM. Hi-fi YASM gets these cores, 20 cores, 120 memory, but if the input size is less than 200 megabyte, it gets less cores and less memory. Yeah, so we can have these rules. These rules can be dependent on parameter, it can be dependent on input size whatsoever. And this is how we then allocate for every single step resources. It's actually an interesting topic of research that how we can manage this. And we have a few AI or machine learning approaches how to optimize those resource allocation. But again, it's a complete different aspect and a user should not be concerned with that. So you, as someone that just runs a workflow, don't care about it. We will take care. Okay.
It looks a platform really dedicated to geeks.
On this level here, yes.
Yeah.
On this level, but again, this is admin. So you, as a user, you will never see this.
Yeah.
But this is, for example, what we share with all these Galaxy instances. So that every Galaxy instance knows that you need now to run whatever, one of these tools here, Pylomess, with at least 24 gigabyte of memory. Yeah, and then a new Galaxy instance that's come up don't need to do this again because we already have this knowledge and we share this knowledge with them. Okay, I hope that answered this question. Any other question or?
I have a small follow-up. I don't want to take a lot of time, but it's just let's say that I have a data set that for the first time is really big for the resources that we request. Then of course it's going to fail at some point, let's say. Then how does that information get to do I have as a user to report it and request more, like a troubleshoot, or does that get notified to the people behind the scenes, I guess?
Yes. So the simple answer is yes, we actually get notified about errors, but those errors are unknown. Oh gosh. So we don't know from which user this error is, and we can already try to fix it. But the best way is if one of your data set fails, you will see such a red data set. And then you can click this bug button here, and you can now send us an error report. And you can maybe, I mean, if you have more information, right, you can add a text here, give us more information. But essentially, if you click now on report, the European Galaxy team will get a very detailed error report with your environment variables, with your parameters that you have used, so that we can actually reproduce this error. You can also share your entire data analysis with us. You can, oops, wrong button. You can go here and say share or publish, and you can just share it with me, for example. And then we can, I mean, we as Galaxy admins, we can try to find out what the problem is, right? Is it a user input problem? Is it memory error? And then we can try to adjust our shared rules and say, okay, for this tool, we now really need to have more memory. But if you have additional information and you already know, oh shit, this tool now needs whatever 20 gigabyte more, then you can contact us either via this bug report or via our contact address and tell us that. Right? And what we would do then is we would actually go to the shared database, create a pull request, adapt it, and we have an automatic redeployment system. So essentially in 24 hours, you will get more resources for this tool. Actually, all Galaxy instances in the world will get then more resources for this tool.
Björn, we have another question from the participant. So one person, for example, is working with large genomes, so I guess maybe amphibians or fishes. So he's asking how he could, for example, increase the disk quota in Galaxy. So for example, if he has approximately 10 terabyte of data, would it be possible to, for example, do a genome assembly with such a large amount of data in Galaxy? And if so, would maybe, the disk quota need to be increased?
Yes. Okay, this is how much time do I have?
I would say we still have 10 minutes for discussion, and then we will try to maybe wrap it up at 11:55.
Okay, there is a link. Where is the chat here? Okay, I don't see the chat at the moment. But there is this link, quota increase, and you will also find it on our main website that brings you to a form. You fill out this form. And essentially, I don't know, 2-3 days later, you have more quota for a specific time frame. You say you need whatever 5 terabyte for the next 6 months. And then, I mean, usually we grant this if you actually are a scientist. And then you will have then in 2 or 3 days, you will have more quota. However, there is something new that we will roll out probably in the next 2-3 weeks. And this will change how users can interact with storage. I will just teaser this because it will probably take much more time. But this website we will advertise in 2 or 3 weeks. And this will, so currently you only have this storage. You will have these 250 gigabytes, and you can extend that if you fill out this form. This is what is currently the state of the art. What you will get in a few weeks is something that we call a short-term storage. And here you will probably, let's see, get unlimited storage with a catch that we will delete data that is older than 60 days. So this is kind of a short-term storage for exploratory research, for developing a new workflow, where you for a short, very, very short-term time needs to go over your 250 gigabyte. Yeah. But we will clean this storage and really aggressively after 60 days. Because we have limited storage, right? We only have a few petabytes, and with 100,000 users, we also need to ensure that everyone gets a fair share. However, there's also something called a user-owned storage. So for example, if your institute provides you as a researcher storage, an S3 bucket, an iRODS, and OneData, maybe you have even whatever, Google Cloud Storage or Amazon bucket, you can actually put this now in Galaxy, in our Galaxy instance. Yeah, this is all described here on this page. But let's assume you have storage in your university in an S3 bucket. You can now go to Galaxy and say, hey, please include my storage from my university in my user account. And now you can run workflows against the storage in your university. So you can extend your own quota with your own storage and be kind of independent of our storage. So these two things, and also a third one that is probably not relevant for you, but these two things will come in the next weeks. And this is also then how you can extend your storage in, for a short time, or with your own resources that you bring into the game. What we can also think about as a BGE or as an ERGA project is what I tried to describe here, right? If if you are in a consortia that actually has money to buy storage, we can now buy the storage, mount it into Galaxy for you as an admin, and then give all people associated to a certain consortia more storage. This is described here. Yeah, I hope it was not too confusing, but essentially there is a quota increase from this. You can always use also in 2 or 3 weeks, but you will have more option in a few weeks when we roll out those changes. Yeah, full stop.
Perfect. We still have another question related to the, let's say, resources. It's about actually requesting more resources linked to teaching. For example, during 1 week or the same time, for example, one morning for an entire month period. That is also possible, right? Also for teaching purposes.
Yes, we call this training infrastructure as a service. So essentially, you request, let's say you want to have next week for 50 people, you want to run this workflow. Then you will get a link from us. This link you need to distribute to your students. They need to click on this link. And once you clicked on this link, you get dedicated resources for this week of training or for this time span of training. You as a trainer, you actually get a nice dashboard that looks like this, which will show you that certain users, so the color code is users because we don't want to expose names. It's color coded, so this is a GDPR compliant thing. But you still can see that the red user has completed these steps. The blue user is at the multi-QC step, or you can see here, no tools errored, 27 are at step okay. So if you have 27 participants, you could say, okay, they are all finished with this step. So we give you kind of a dashboard where you can a little bit oversee what your class is currently doing. This is also included in this TIAS package. Yeah.
Perfect. And then we have one last question, which is about the wall time for an analysis, if there's actually a maximum wall time.
On the European Galaxy server, it's 30 days. After 30 days, we will kick every job. Yeah.
Perfect. Lila, I think Björn actually answered also a little bit your question about extending data, right? So it's not necessary to ask again, because I think you had a pretty lengthy explanation. So I think we could maybe wrap it up, or Björn, do you still have quite a lot of things to share with us, or?
Maybe just a few things.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can run in Galaxy Jupyter Notebook and RStudio. So you can combine both worlds. Just keep that in mind. So if you want and if you can program, you can combine Jupyter Notebooks in a workflow, RStudio in a workflow. And actually, there's a bunch of different of those things like Jupyter Notebook and so on. There's entire stuff around research data management. So you can search in Zenodo, you can export data to Zenodo, get a document identifier for this. So there's an entire world about data export, import, row crates, and so on. Yeah, and that's it. I just wanted to teaser this. If you are in research data management and I don't know, Galaxy can talk to electronic lab notebooks, right? So that you import data from your electronic lab notebook or you actually export data to them. If this is of interest, please get in contact.